So guys, yesterday we got our first official look at the brand new LEGO Daily Bugle, and it looks absolutely amazing. I think it is really shaping up to be probably the best LEGO Marvel superhero set ever made. But today we actually got some brand new details and some behind the scenes information about how they actually made this set. And with that, I thought it'd be fun to take a look at what this set could have been if LEGO and Marvel gave the designer full creative control. But before we go ahead and discuss all that, I did want to give a quick reminder that the giveaway for $100 worth of your choice of LEGO sets is still going on. So you couldn't win this Daily Bugle set because it's way more than $100, but you could win a bunch of the brand new Infinity Saga sets, which look absolutely amazing. All you got to do to enter is make sure you are subscribed, follow that link in the description, and sign in with your YouTube account. Also, it turns out that less than 7% of you guys that watch these videos are subscribed to the channel, so make sure you subscribe because it's free and you'll get a chance at winning some free LEGO sets. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. So yesterday with the release of this set, the designer Mark Stafford, who did an amazing job on this by the way, went on Reddit and did an Ask Me Anything where fans could ask questions about this new set. And there were a whole lot of great questions asked, and he actually gave some really in-depth and sincere answers. It's a really good read, so I'll actually leave a link in the description to the Reddit post itself, and I'd really recommend reading through it if you guys have the time. Usually we don't get that good of a look at the behind the scenes processes of making a LEGO set, but Mark did answer a bunch of questions and gave us a bunch of new details about how this set was made. So there's two things in particular that I wanted to talk about, that being the roster of the minifigures and the actual look of the building itself. So first, let's talk about these minifigures. Now, I know the one big issue that a lot of you guys want me to talk about is the leg printing. I know I'm always talking about how there's never any leg printing on LEGO Marvel minifigures, but that's something that I actually want to save for another video because there's a lot more to talk about there, especially with the Infinity Saga sets as well. But for this video, I wanted to focus specifically on the Daily Bugle and why they went with this roster of minifigures and what minifigures we could have seen instead of the ones that we got in this set. So it turns out the designer of this set, Mark Stafford, actually had a list of about 60 minifigures that he wanted to include in this set. Obviously 60 is not very realistic, he knew he was going to have to cut that down, but he had this massive list and he said there was a bunch of characters that he wanted to include, including the Sinister Six, Deadpool, the Human Torch, Iceman, Spider-Woman, and all of Spider-Man's buddies. So the designer actually had a really big vision for the minifigure lineup for this set, but he did then go into further detail about how the process of choosing these minifigures does go. So it turns out that LEGO isn't in complete control when it comes to deciding what minifigures go into a set. A lot of that actually has to do with Marvel, and they have to pretty much sign off on everything. So whenever a set like this is made, Marvel then checks up on it and gives their comments and concerns. Specifically with this set, apparently they wanted to change the color of the Daily Bugle logo. The designer originally had it in yellow, but then Marvel suggested that it be in red, which I think was actually a pretty good decision. So I know a lot of people were a little bit let down by the minifigure lineup of this set. There were figures that they wanted to see that just weren't included, such as some iconic Spider-Man villains like the Sinister Six, that being Doc Ock, Vulture, Electro, Mysterio, Sandman, and Kraven the Hunter. We did get a few of them in this set, but none of them were really that exclusive or anything. I also wanted to see some heroes in this set like Spider-Woman, some members of the Fantastic Four, and also MJ, but apparently since MJ is in the MCU, they didn't want two variations of this character going out there at the same time. I guess that causes a little bit of confusion, so that's why they didn't include her in this set, which was honestly pretty weird to think about. It didn't cross my mind that MJ isn't included in this massive Spider-Man set, which is pretty weird when you think about it. Anyways, there are some other characters I wanted to see as well, that being a big fig version of Venom. All the recent variations of Venom, including the Venom that we see in the movie, is really big and just doesn't suit the minifigure as well. So I think a big fig version of Venom would have been awesome to see in a set like this. You could have had him and maybe even a big figure of Rhino. And also I would have loved to see a Wilson Fisk in this set as well, just because we get Daredevil. This list could honestly go on forever, and I'm sure a lot of these characters that I just named were on the designer's list as well, but of course he couldn't go through with all of them just because the LEGO Marvel team is actually limited in the amount of new minifigures that they can make, and we are getting quite a few new LEGO Marvel minifigures this year, so that may be why they couldn't make too many new ones. I guess every single year, every theme gets a budget on how many new minifigures they can actually produce, and because this set was actually going to go over that amount, they did have to reuse a bunch of different minifigures, and apparently that's actually the reason that we got a lot of these minifigures before this set was actually released. Like if you look at the Spider-Man in this set, who is really awesome by the way, with dual molded legs and arm printing as well, that same minifigure is included in a $20 set, and I guess that's because they didn't want to make a new variation of Spider-Man just for that $20 set. The designer was also asked about how he was able to include more violent characters like the Punisher and Blade, and the answer to that is because it's a 18 plus set. So with 18 plus sets, they can actually include minifigures that are a little bit more obscure. It's also the same reason that we got Firestar in this set, who a lot of people don't know. I personally didn't know she existed until this set was released, but they could include her in this set because it is targeted at adults who are more likely to be well versed with the comics and know who these characters are. So if you're hoping to see any really obscure characters from the Marvel theme, the only real hope you have here is with the larger 18 plus sets. Another really highly requested minifigure that a lot of people wanted in this set is Stan Lee, and the reason that they can't actually make a minifigure of Stan Lee is because he's an actual person in real life. So he's not actually included in licensing deals or anything because he's not technically part of Marvel's IP. And the designer also said that this is the same reason that we've never really gotten a George Lucas minifigure, at least not officially in retail sets. And I guess that is fair enough. They aren't really part of the IP that LEGO is portraying here, so I guess there's no real need to add them. Although I am still holding out hope that one day we will get a LEGO Stan Lee minifigure. I know there's all this licensing stuff, but if there was some way to get around it, it would be really awesome to see. So for those of you that were a little bit let down by this minifigure lineup and may have been upset at LEGO a little bit, I couldn't really put the blame entirely on LEGO or the designer at all. It turns out this designer wanted to add a whole bunch of minifigures and just wasn't really allowed to. And I guess that's mainly due to Marvel because they are the ones that sign off on which minifigures can be included in each set. But again, there's also the issue of LEGO not being able to produce that many unique minifigures each year, so I guess it's a bit of both, but at the end of the day, the designer really tried to get us all these characters, he just wasn't able to. So mad respect to him, I'm still really glad with what he did with this set, but make sure to let me know what you guys think about this lineup of minifigures down in the comments below. Which minifigures did you really want in this set that weren't included? I did read a lot of comments about wanting the Dr. Connors as the Lizard Big Fig, but I think the one that I really wanted to see in this set was Venom as a Big Fig or Wilson Fisk, just because Daredevil is also here as well. Spider-Woman would have been great to see as well. I definitely could have went without Firestar and have her included instead, but for what it is, I still think it's a good lineup of minifigures, although you do gotta remember about 5 of them are actually just civilians. But again, the designer was kind of limited, so what can you do? Anyways, now that we talked about the minifigures, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is the set itself here. So one of the big things that I saw a lot of people talking about was the color choice of this set. I think typically when most people picture the Daily Bugle, we think of a large tan building, but here the Daily Bugle is this large gray skyscraper. It almost kind of looks too plain in a way, and typically the variation of the Daily Bugle that we usually see is this wedge-shaped design, and the designer actually acknowledged this, but the reason he couldn't do that is because the wedge-shaped design of that building is actually a whole nother license, so that creates a bunch of other issues, so he just made it a large rectangle instead. Also, I guess this is more comic book accurate because this is more like what it looks like in the comics. Anyways, I went ahead and actually recolored this entire set in tan bricks to see what it would actually look like, and I gotta be honest, I think I actually kind of prefer it here. The gray just looks a little bit too dead to me. The designer actually answered why he chose gray instead of tan, which is actually that the minifigures stand out more against the gray. And I guess he is right on that, but as a whole, I still think the building looks better in tan. So I know the minifigures stand out more, but just the building overall looks better like this. But that's just my personal opinion. Make sure to let me know what color you guys prefer down in the comments below. But that pretty much does it for everything that Mark answered in this AMA. I'm actually really glad that LEGO is doing this with some of the larger sets. It's nice to see a behind the scenes look at what we could have gotten and how they went about making each decision. I do have my issues with the minifigures, but that's not actually with the minifigure lineup itself. It has more to do with the lack of printing and the lack of exclusivity of some of the characters. But that second point has pretty much been addressed by this designer. These minifigures were probably going to be exclusive to this set, but they can only make so many in a year, so they're included in others. Also, I still think the building would have looked better in tan, but hey, it doesn't look bad in gray either. Either way, this is an amazing set, and I think it's probably the best LEGO Marvel superhero set ever made. That's still a question that I keep asking myself in my mind, and I honestly don't know if I have an answer yet, but that's something that we're going to leave for another video. Make sure to let me know what you guys think about this set, how you would have fixed it, and what changes you would have made. Also, if you guys haven't had a chance to enter the giveaway, make sure to do so. But that will pretty much do it for me. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.